Beep, 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 beep. Hello, hi there. We're back on the subject of inking. This is going to be part 2. And with the previous video that I provided, I was trying my best to be quasi-objective. That was yesterday. This is today. I'm not going to repeat the benefits that I listed yesterday or in the previous clip about using a tablet. I don't need to do that. Now I get to move on to what I was alluding to at the end of the last clip, which is, can you bring yourself to work with something that, if you're like me, you absolutely loathe, despise, and revile? Other people might enjoy the process and the physical sensation of working with a stylus on an artificial synthetic substance that serves as an artboard or a canvas. Personally, I can't stand it. It's just yuck to me. And the end results, with very few exceptions by other artists, are yuck to me. And some of you might be saying, yeah, you know, we've seen you in the chats, we've seen you leave some comments, etc. But who are you really to make such judgmental, over-the-top, almost hyperbolic, but not really, comments about Wacom inking? All right, that's a fair question. I have been paid pretty much mid-range or sometimes top dollar for inking pages professionally in the comic book industry, over 400 pages, all of which have been published, all of which are listed in the various lists. It's one of the reasons my name is on Lambic or Lambec, or however, it's Belgian, I don't know. However the hell you pronounce it, lambic.com, which is kind of like the IMDb of comic book people. I have mainly inked myself, but I have on rare occasion inked others, including one of the people that I consider one of the top 15 comic book artists, particularly pencilers, of all time. That was a joy. I've also inked a couple of dingleberries along the way who basically could not make their shit look right. And speaking of not looking right, let me just point this out. A Wacom cannot turn a bad inker into a good one. It might make them faster. It might mean there's less mess that they have to clean up at the end of the day. But basically, even with all the cheats, it still looks like cheats, okay? You can't take slices of American cheese and stick them in the microwave with a little bit of spice here and there and transform that into camembert or Gruyere. It's not going to happen. It's not even going to become smoked Gouda. I mean, the Wacom, in many cases, is like autotune. You can take someone who, if they're singing a song that has 7 notes and they can only hit one of the notes and they're off key and off tune for the rest of the song, autotune's just going to make it a more synthetic version of yuck. That's it. It's still going to be unbearable to the ears. Every person who creates inking on a tablet that looks really good, invariably are people who create really good inks on real Bristol board, on real art materials, and they learn to do that beforehand. And they're just good inkers anyway. But they became good inkers because they weren't learning on a tablet. I mean, in the recording industry, in music and in audiobooks, etc., when it comes to microphones and being able to get a decent sound, and I'm not even claiming my sound's decent, but, you know, it's still better than someone just using the laptop microphone in an incredibly echoey bathroom. The phrase is garbage in, garbage out. So if you start out with a whole bunch of bad art habits and the tablet just makes it easier to continue engaging those bad art habits, then it's just going to magnify the aspects of your illustration. If you have a really timid thumb, forefinger, middle finger, and wrist, and you never use your elbow in inking, the tablet's not going to help you. The tablet's just going to encourage you to remain being timid. And in both inking and in painting, if you are timid, your work ends up being less. It's that simple. It's referred to in the professional circles as the confidence of line. This goes back to the previous clips I did talking about life drawing. With life drawing, you are basically working on a big sheet of paper, sometimes 3 times or 4 times as big as the average comic book page, sometimes 4 times as big as the average comic book original art size. And you have to use your arm, and you have to use your shoulder, and it loosens you up. Guess what? Working at a bigger size, working with original materials, with inking, you get the same benefits. But if you're someone who sits there and you're working on a size that is barely bigger than the printed size of the comic book, barely bigger than 7 inches by 10 inches, and you tend to scrunch up, and you tend to hunch over, and you tend to do these little itty bitty lines, barely moving your hand, being so worried, you can't even do a big long outline around a deltoid, and a bicep and a tricep going down to the elbow, continuing to the forearm. No, you got to do one little bit and connect it to another little bit and connect it to another little bit and hope it's going to work out. And then you use the Wacom in order to compensate and make that line all come together nice. And no, it still looks like crap, and I can spot it every time. Not to sound like the bastard child of Lewis Black and Dennis Miller, but it bugs the living shit out of me. And it will always bug the living shit out of me. Now, maybe there is some art out there made by some 25-year-old whose parents were well off enough that when that 25-year-old was 15 and said, I want an expensive tablet for Christmas, or their birthday, they got one and they played around with it for a year and said, I want to do fantasy art and illustration, and I'm going to be a comic book artist. And maybe by the time they were 25, they were able to do something like Frank Frazetta's illustrations, pen and ink illustrations for classic 1950s science fiction and for Tarzan, but I've never seen any. And I have constantly been looking, for at least 10 years. I never see any. I see a lot of, oh, look, more Wacom crap. But I don't see stuff that really looks like the real deal. And before I go on, I got 2 code words for you, okay? Grammarly and silicone. There are so many millennials who are so intellectually vapid and lackadaisical that we have gotten to the point where one of the most frequent and using ads that clearly cost a lot of money, most frequent advertisers on YouTube is Grammarly. I can't be bothered to learn how to put a sentence together, so guess what? I'm just going to pay for an app and it'll do it for me. I mean, this is like the little kid from the Jetsons claiming that he would have been an athlete if he had the robot female maid compete in the sporting events for him, and she won. And because he put her into the race, by his misunderstanding of the situation, he thinks he won the race. No. As for explaining the silicon, I think it's self-explanatory. And also, it's not fair for me to make a silicon joke because, quite frankly, I'm an ass man. As much as I admire and I can appreciate décolletage, it's not really the curvature I pay attention to. But if anyone, like the 5 of you that are going to listen to this, has ever seen some of the chest shots, the torso shots of people trying to break into Hollywood between 1982 and 1992, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Welcome to Wacom Microwave Meals. Can I take your order, please? And that about wraps it up for today. All the art you've seen was created and provided by yours truly, all with physical materials, oftentimes mostly traditional. I'm still so fussy, I don't consider marker pens to be traditional inking materials. So a lot of my stuff is done with brush. A lot of it is done with dip pens, metal nibs. And sometimes even another traditional item, which I'm not going to go into because it was Dick Giordano's secret weapon. And with that, I bid you adieu. Happy comic book creation. And hopefully I won't lose anybody on my 63 subscriber list for being such a butthead today. Love to all. Bye.